All right. Thank you. All right. So a couple of things really quickly. You are going to need to, not yet, I'm going to give you a minute, but you are going to need to turn your cameras on because we're going to play Simon Says. And I can't tell if you're doing it if I can't see you. It's just how life works. Okay. So I'm gonna start out where we left off, if that makes sense. It does make sense. I don't know why I said that. I'm going to start off where we left off. And so looking at recruiting. So we set the stage. We have this picture in our mind. We have a clear vision of our ministry. What kind of environment do we want to work in? What kind of people do we need to bring into the team? And we are now ready to go. You know, we all need introverts, extroverts though. Pastor Francis, I'll tell you, my Darnisha is an extrovert and she's exhausting to me, but it's necessary. We need those people in our lives. So let's start with how do you determine what kinds of gifts are necessary for your particular ministry? So I want to start with, I need you guys to be practical here. I need you to start with, in your mind, think of an opening that you currently have in your ministry. It can be, this is not going to be the weird game where you just stare at me. It can be an opening that's currently filled and you're like, oh, well, this one's really easy for me to think through. Or it can be one that you're honestly like, this really needs to happen. For me, I'm going to use the example of a social media coordinator because that's a current need that I have. I'm sick and tired of coordinating all of the social media for my ministries. I'm over it. I have a hard enough time organizing my own page. So think through what would be the gifts that would be necessary. Now, when you're thinking about gifts, we want to think about it in a number of ways. First of all, we want to think about it as, what are their spiritual gifts? What would be the spiritual gifting that someone would need to have to be a social media coordinator? I don't know. Maybe they would need to have an outward focus. They would definitely need to have a heart for evangelism. They would definitely need to have the gift of teaching and speaking, because I don't know about you guys, but when people post stuff that is clearly not been edited or even looked at, they just threw it up there. I'm like, nope. So they need to be able to kind of have that visual gifting of what's appealing and what's not. They need to be able to have positive relationships with people. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm looking at people for online stuff, I'm very much like, okay, but how do they come across when they're writing? Like, it's one thing to be interested in how somebody comes across when you're interacting with them. But if you've ever had somebody who you get an email from them and you're like, ooh, I know that you're a nice person and that you like me, but this came across as rude. Don't pick that person for social media, guys. So think through for a minute, what would be the gifting? What would be the skill set? What would be the passions that this person has to have? If you have a person in your church who is absolutely fantastic, wonderful at writing, hates technology, don't have that person be the social media coordinator. Just don't. If they ask you what a Facebook is, no. Okay. So I want you guys to make that list. Okay. As you are working through this process that we're going to talk about, you're looking for those gifts. You're not looking for someone to fill this position. You're looking for those gifts. And the difference here is, if I'm looking for someone to fill this position, all I'm looking for is a name that I can put next to on that line. If I'm looking for these gifts, now my focus is on our mission. Now my focus is on our vision, and I'm able to do that. So I'm actually going to start with what I call the lowest risk activity, and that is the ministry fair. How many of you guys You can put a little thumbs up or a raised hand or something in your comments, since we're still not turning on videos, I see. How many of you guys have ever had, participated, led, attended, had anything to do with a ministry fair? Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Okay. So if you've done a ministry fair, and I don't know, I've attended ministry fairs that were genuinely, they made me seriously question if I would want to have anything to do with this church ever again. Because if your fair is this boring, like, I can't handle it. Okay. How many of you have ever gone to a ministry fair that made you seriously not want to sign up for anything? Yeah. Thank you, Kanisha. Thank you for your honesty. You get there and you're like, y'all didn't put tablecloths on this tables? Like, you're just standing there with a piece of paper in your hand. You're like, this is what I do. Do you want to sign up? No, I don't. I don't want to sign up. So ministry fairs need to feel like a fair. They need to feel like something that people want to go to. It needs to be a social event. That may take more than just you. That may be like, and when we do ministry fairs, we do 2 ministry fairs a year at our church. And as the pastor, I kind of get to be really, I don't want to say naggy, but I kind of get to give department heads a hard time and be like, you need to be at the ministry fair. You need to do this. It doesn't even matter if anybody signs up to be a part of your ministry. You need to do this. You can do that too, though. I'll be honest, when I was a volunteer, I would organize a lot of things for my church. That's how I ended up being a pastor. And I would literally be like, okay, Pathfinders needs these staff. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to call men's ministries. We're going to be like, hey, we're going to do a little ministry fair. I need you guys to show up so that you guys can show off all of the cool stuff that you do. We're going to call women's ministries and be like, hey, you guys need to show up and show us the cool baked goods, baking, blah, 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 that you guys did at the last thing. I call up anybody who would have somebody half associated with my department. Okay. So men's ministry shows up because, well, yeah, we're going to show off that amazing men's camping retreat we did. It's going to be awesome. Women's ministry shows up to show off that bake sale they did to raise money. And all of the people who are interested in those 2 ministries, I'm like, really, tell me more about your love for camping. Because if you love camping, you will love Pathfinders. See, that's the mindset. You can, and it's not stealing, but you can steal from other people if you play your cards right. Okay. So when you're thinking this through, think through, okay, if this is the kind of person I want, if I want somebody that's organized, if I want somebody who's good with kids, if I want somebody who has a positive attitude and is going to be a team player, what does my booth need to look like for that to be the kind of person who shows up? So if I'm looking for somebody who's organized and my booth looks like I just literally came out of the copy room and trying to figure out where to even find a chair, they're not going to want to come hang with me, are they? No. Say no. Turn off your mutes and say no out loud. Do it.
No.
Thank you.
Go.
So I'm going to need to have a really brightly colored trifold board, and I'm going to need to have my handouts ready when they walk through the door. If I want somebody who's good with kids, and this is, guys, this is one of those things that I really struggle with. I will have carnival games at my stations. If you are too good to play a carnival game, you are too good to work with my kids. If you're like, I'm an adult, I will not toss this ring over to that soda bottle. I don't know how you think you're going to survive kids with donuts. It's not going to happen. And so it feels like, oh yeah, this is just a really fun booth. I'm screening people, guys. I am screening people who are like, that booth is out of control. I don't want to go over there. That music that she's playing in her booth is way too loud. I don't want to go over there. I'm like, good, because we don't want you at our booth. Go. Please go visit like the, I don't know, community service center. I don't know where things are less fun, but I know where things are super fun. Okay. If you're looking for somebody who's going to be super positive, it's really good to put the good things about your ministry. Don't say, we really need you, please come. It's like, so like these kids, they just stare at you. It's going to be, no, you've got to be like, okay, number one, we have the best kids on the planet. You have no idea how much fun these kids are. Number two, we have the most amazing programs already organized. You're just doing this part of it. When you sell it, you've got to be positive. Your ministry experience at your booth should give people a feel for what it is that you're going to be exposing them to for their time in your ministry. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's my question, and you're going to have to unmute for this. My question is, what is one thing that when you're doing a ministry fair, the next ministry fair you have to do, what is one thing that you're going to put at your booth to really sell what your ministry is like?
I'm going to put 17 Ellen G. White quotes.
Perfect. Especially if you're trying to sell this for like beginner Sabbath school. That's perfect. Anybody else? Any other takers on things that you could put at your booth?
Food. Everyone loves food.
Food. Let me tell you guys something about food. And I'm very serious about this because I don't do a meeting without food. If I expect people to show up someplace, I feed you. If you show up in my office, there are Laffy Taffies and Airheads in a bowl in my office. Here's why. So Jesus has this reputation of eating with sinners. Think through the people that you intentionally sit down and have a meal with, even fellowship meal. If you stop and think about the people that you go into the room and you look and say, okay, these are the people that I'm going to sit down with. They're your friends. They're people that you trust. They're people that you're comfortable with. We see this with animals all the time. Animals will not eat in an unsafe environment. They won't. So when you have food, the implication is that you have a safe, comfortable environment. It's like, I don't know why I like sitting in here, but something about this place, I just always want to sit in Katrina's office. I have secret sodas for my lead pastor's kids in my office. He thinks that it's because I just want to get them all hopped up on sugar and then send them home. It's actually so that I secretly instill in them the idea that he's their dad and I'm their pastor. That's why they love me. Anyways, so as you're thinking through, food is a fantastic one. I would encourage you, when you're thinking about food, think about things like ice cream. Ice cream is a huge sell and fairly easy to do. Cupcakes are incredibly easy to set out and leave. Like, you don't have a lot of ongoing prep, ongoing supervision. It's very easy to put out cookies or cupcakes and people can take it and walk away. Versus, here, let me serve this whole thing to you. So when you're doing huge ministry fairs, like the whole church is involved, like we do, we literally set out. So our January one is fire and ice. That's just the standing theme. We have an entire section of s'mores. And for those of you who haven't tried this, please get the Ghirardelli squares for your s'mores. You'll thank me later. So we have a whole s'mores bar and we have a whole sundae bar and then all of the booths. And it's super, super laid back for them to kind of come and go. It also means that parents feel comfortable bringing their kids. Okay. When you have food and parents can shove some food in their kids' mouths, kids are going to be much more likely to chill out. Just being honest. Which means that parents feel more comfortable working in your ministry, because if your kid is okay, you are much more likely to participate than if you're like having to figure out how to get your kid under control while you do something. Okay. Other things to think about: video slideshows of cool things that you guys have done in the past year or so. If you wanted to put together a little information card, I never suggest an entire sheet. Half sheet at most, guys. The minute you give somebody an entire sheet of paper to tell them about your ministry, unless you've used really big font, you've used too many words and they're not going to read it. So half sheet at most. I would go boom, 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 5 bullet points of things to know about our ministry. Keep it short. Okay. Games are super, super fun, and they're not as stressful as a lot of people make them out to be. A lot of times it's like, oh, all of the setup, but actually if you do it, and like I said, we do carnival games a lot at my booths. So we'll do like a ring toss, or one time we did 9 square indoors with a volleyball. You really got to be careful when you put that much energy into something, because the older people did not appreciate the screaming. But when you're going through and thinking about like a balloon pop wall or something like that, absolutely do that. Okay. So you have your ministry fair, and your ministry fair, at the end of it, we actually don't ask people to sign up at booths. We give everybody a passport. They fill out their passport that says, these are the ministries that I'm interested in based on my visiting today. And all of those get turned in at the registration desk. We distribute to the leaders and say, these are the people who said they were interested in your ministry. And that takes us into the next step, which is that personal invitation. So before I go to personal invitation, any questions about ministry fair? By the way, guys, Nisha's back. Hi, Nish. Any questions for ministry fair? Are we ready to go? I have some chats happening. Let me double check. Okay, there we go.
Is there what day of the week do you typically do it? On Sabbath afternoon, or?
We do our fall ministry fair on a Sunday, and we do our winter ministry fair. So our August ministry fair, when we're kicking off, is on a Sunday, and then our winter ministry fair in January is a Saturday night. The sun sets really late here in the summers. We can't do it on Saturday night in the summers. So we mix it up a little bit in that way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to go on to that personal invitation. And I told you guys a little bit about this, that I do. I have a reputation in my church of being the let's chat girl, and let's chat never means I just really want to get to know you, even though that's how they feel. So when we're talking about ministry, one of the things that it's very important to, and I think I said this before, but I'm going to go back and say it again. You want to get people in the habit of saying yes to you. And I talk about this in a couple of different ways. When I'm talking to churches about how to get their teenagers involved in ministry, I'm like, listen, you waited too long. And that's why you're now having to bring in a specialist to help get young people involved in ministry. When you start with 3rd graders and you're like, hey, can I get a volunteer to do special music? Can I get a volunteer to read scripture? Can I get a volunteer to pass out bulletins? Can I get a volunteer to open doors? And that age group, they're in the habit of saying yes. And so then when they're in high school and you're like, hey, can I get a volunteer too? And they're like, I'll do it. And then they're like, wait, why is my hand up? Because you've trained them to say yes, and they don't know that they aren't supposed to still be saying yes. They think this is what life is supposed to be like. You can do the same thing with members of your church as you're getting them to volunteer. And that means in order to get them to say yes, to train them to say yes, you have to intentionally create times when they're saying yes is rewarding for them. That sounds super manipulative. It's not. It's life, okay? So you start out with, hey, can I take you to Jamba Juice? Can I take you to Starbucks? I have yet to have a person who, when I said, hey, can I just take you out to grab a Jamba Juice or a Starbucks, who's like, ugh, I hate sipping things. I've never had that happen. I've had, well, what does your schedule look like? Well, I have to bring my kid with me. I've had lots of those. Not once have I had somebody be like, no, absolutely not. You cannot take me out and pay for me to have a tasty drink. How dare you? So you ask that question, and I'm going to suggest a couple of things. I don't know how many of you guys have budgets that you literally present to your church board, and then they have to approve your budget and blah, 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 blah. I include this in my church budget. I include recruiting funds in my church budget so that I am not paying out of pocket. I'm going to be honest, guys, it's like $5 a drink at Starbucks. I can't just go around paying every time. So it's in the budget that this is a part of funding our ministry, is funding the recruiting side. If you don't have it in your budget, present it. I can send you the Arms of an Angel so that you can play that in the background. You can put some sad kids who don't have volunteers in their lives because you couldn't take them to Tim Hortons and be like, without your money, this poor blessed kid is going to go their entire life without knowing Jesus because I couldn't buy somebody a Starbucks. It doesn't always work well, but you can try it. So you're going to sit down. And again, this first conversation is not, I'd really like to talk to you about being the brand new Pathfinder director. They will say no. Remember, we want them to say yes. We're getting them to yes. Anytime you ask a question, you should be confident that it's going to be a yes before you ask. If you're not sure, don't ask yet, okay? So you're going to say, hey, you know what? Let's say, for example, I'm looking for the social media coordinator. So I say, hey, can I take you to Starbucks? And I ask, hey, how are things going at home? How are things with your kids? Tell me about work, blah, 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 blah. And then I say, you know, I absolutely love how you post on Instagram. Like, it's very consistent and it's such a huge variety. Just on your own personal wall, you've got fabulous scriptures and quotes. You've got pictures of your kids. You've got, you know, cool statistics and videos that you found. I absolutely love your Instagram page. And wouldn't you know it, like, I don't know if you've seen our Instagram page, but you are so above and beyond anything we're doing on our Instagram page right now. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind shooting me a private message of any of the cute little quotes that you have so that we can repost it on our Instagram and look cool like you. Well, so you're not asking them to do anything other than send you what they've already found. Yeah, sure. I can send you stuff that I find that's cool. But in the midst of sending stuff that they find that's cool, they're investing in your ministry now. That tiny little, here, I found this cute little picture online of this kid learning about Jesus, or, oh, hey, this was a scripture verse that I posted on my page wall feed thing. I don't know what Instagram is called. Niche, you can let me know. So they start sending you that stuff. You start posting it. I'm like, hey, shout out to so-and-so for this amazing post they sent us. Shout out to such and such, because can you believe this is so inspiring? It touched my heart today. You, as they're going along, and again, that whole thank you, you want, I would say 4 or 5 thank yous, 4 or 5 for the things that they do, where you're reinforcing for them. And it's not just a thank you like, yeah, thanks, okay. Yeah, thanks, okay. It's genuinely stopping and recognizing you've done something This is the impact that it's had on me personally. Thank you so much for sending this to me. It was such a huge inspiration. I'm going to go ahead and add it to our page. Or the impact that it has on your kids. Thank you so much. I know our kids are going to love these pictures that you took of our last event. You want them to start making the connection that you appreciate what they do because of the impact that it made. Okay. So you've done this for a while. They've gone a month of just shooting you what they have. And you say, hey, can we grab Starbucks again? Can we just check in? And so you check in with them and you say, hey, let's talk through what it's been like, just sharing the few things that you've been able to share over the past month. I noticed, did you see all of the comments that you got for that one picture that you sent us? The kids absolutely love that. Or, oh, did you see all of the cute little hearts that were on that one when we put it on our story? That one was so good. You go through and you talk about that. You ask them, hey, what was it like for you seeing those posts show up on our Instagram? What was it like for you having those conversations when kids started like putting their little comments in? And I noticed you responded to so-and-so. What was that like for you? Now you have asked them to invest. You've asked them to process that investing. And when you start doing the what was it like for you, now they're owning it. Now this is my thing that I'm doing. Okay. So then you say, well, I'm actually looking for somebody to take over our social media. It requires this much time every week. This is how long you're going to be doing it for. And here are the other team members that you're going to be doing it with. So if I'm looking at my social media person, I'm like, so it would mean that you'd have to plan a couple of posts every day. We generally try to do one scripture post and one inspirational picture of the kids doing something cool. And then obviously if we do any like outing activity kinds of things, you would need to either go and take pictures or you would have to have the kids send you their pictures. And so I'm looking at somebody who can finish out the rest of this year, so through December. And honestly, it's not a huge team of people. You'd pretty much just be working with me and our secretary to make that happen. Is that something that you'd be interested in doing? And here's the thing, you're not going to let them answer. You're going to say, let's pray about it. And I'm going to give you a call in a couple of days to see what you think. Okay. When you do that, you take all of the pressure off of them. This is no longer, I have to sit here. You are going to have to stare me down while you tell me no about my poor babies. No, this is, hey, we're having a fun conversation. We've enjoyed doing this thing together for a little while. And now I want to know if you want to continue. I don't want you to feel pressured to continue. I just want you to keep going because I think you're doing a great job. Call me. Let me know what you think. Again, you're waiting until you know they're going to say yes. So in a couple of days, when you circle back, they're going to be like, yeah, I thought about it. And I really feel like that wouldn't be that hard. Great. Let me get you the information. Let me get you connected with our page so that you can automatically do it from your phone. I'm going to let the secretary know to put you on our contact list so that you're getting all of the updates, blah, 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 blah. Let's go from there. Does that make sense? Any questions about that personal invitation side? No, none. Okay. Okay. So Niche, are you actually there or are you listening while you drive home? I think she's listening while she drives home. So I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is, okay. So I'm going to go on while you do whatever it is you're doing. Okay. Which is, I want to talk for just a second. Now that you've got people showing up to be a part of this. Now, what do you do? Okay. So, the first thing I want to do, and this is the part you have to turn your cameras off. Turn your cameras on, not off. Your cameras are on, off now. Turn them on. I believe in you. You can do this. We're all family here. Did somebody leave because I said to turn your camera on? You guys feel this strongly about this. Well, I'm going to sit here and cry. No, just kidding, guys. I'm not really crying. Thank you, Pat. High five on Pat. Everybody high five Pat. Okay. Hey, girl. Hey,
Hello,
hey,
everybody. Am I audible?
You are audible.
Okay, I had to ask that. So I guess y'all wondering where I am. I don't know if Pastor Katrina mentioned, but
She's in outer space.
well, that. But unfortunately, I had a death with one of my church members, and the way how pastoral ministry is set up, you know, you at least expect it. So I'm currently with the family right now. Continue to keep them lifted. Shout out to Pastor Sean Folks and congrats on baby number 2. So I'm excited. Anyways, girl dad game. So I wanted to talk about, I think did we talk about Shadow Me Sabbath?
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to do. If
All
you
right,
can.
Yeah. So Shadow Me Sabbath is simple. Basically, like, Pastor Katrina went through with the personal invitation. So along with the personal invitation, what I normally do whenever I talk with someone who is interested in volunteering and trying to figure out where to go, and I guess I can also add in the gifts as well. So this will be a mixture of gifts, gifts-based ministry, and
I did that already, Niche.
oh, okay, good. All right. So job's a lot easier. So basically the Shadow Me Sabbath, what I do is I connect with, I normally give my leaders a heads up, my ministry leaders a heads up. So depending on the size of your church, if you have a big church, which I'm not sure who has the biggest church, but I know the way how my church was set up in my previous ministry back home in Maryland, it was a huge church. So you had the deacons ministries, you had the childcare ministry, you had children's church, and you have sound, you have video, the whole 9 yards, and greeting. So the goal is basically what I do. I connect with the interest, with the volunteer perspective, and if it's I will send out an email and hoping to God that my leaders see an email. So I give them an email in advance. Well, actually, let's rewind. So I talk to the volunteer perspective, and I ask them, so which Sabbath are you interested in serving? So they'll say, I'm interested in the first Sabbath or the second Sabbath. So I connect them when first Sabbath shows up. I have them, I connect them with those who are serving on that Sabbath. So those who are serving, so like, for example, for Sabbath school, I will connect them with those that are serving the kindergarten on first Sabbath. And what I do is I'll send out an email and I would request for the volunteer person, recruitee, to send out a picture of themselves so that when I send them an email notifying the team saying, hey, greetings leaders, just a FYI, Katrina is interested in being in serving for kindergarten or for teens or pathfinders. They're interested in serving in this capacity. So this is a picture of her just so that you can get to know who she is. Connect them, just basically reminding them, like, tell her what to expect, tell her allow her to shadow you for the Sabbath. And then and then we also encourage cross training. So she does not only just stand there, but she could help either pass out papers, she could help out just connecting with the teens, with the leaders, with whomever, like if food is involved, have her share out the food, serve the food, you name it. So that's what I would do. So afterwards, upon first Sabbath, I would meet up with her at the lobby of foyer, and then we both walk towards the location where she'll be shadowing. So then I'm handing her off to the leaders, just as a way, because I don't want to say, okay, just meet at this, because sometimes they may not know where to go. So you got to be like, you got to be able, and plus it's that awkward moment when you walk, you say, hi, I'm here to serve, and they're like, who's this person? How about who this woman? So So when they see me, they're like, okay, this is someone I can connect with. I'm gonna connect her that, she's worthy. She went through pastors and all my leaders go to, and even you could even have your head leader to be doing what you're doing. Like, well, I mean, I'm sure you're a head leader. So you could just basically just say, hey, meet me at the foyer at this time and we'll walk down together. So we connect, I hand them off, and then we leave. Then I leave, and then they're shadowing. So during the shadowing, they're talking to the leaders, to the team, like, so what do you expect? What is your role? What do you do? How do you make this effective for your teams? How do you make this effective for families? How do you build a relationship with the parents? What are things like, what donut place does a child not like? What are some activities that they don't like? What are some things that I need to be aware of? So it's from that experience, just from shadowing, and after the shadowing Sabbath is done, I normally check in maybe towards the end, like after everything is wrapped up, say, hey, how's everything going? And they'll say, it's good. And then towards the end, like after like the following week, I will send out a message. I love donuts. Pastor Fran was like, what's with you ladies and donuts? Donuts are life.
There is such a thing as a bad donut, though.
There is a bad donut. Dunkin' Donuts.
I know where the bad donut place is right now.
Yeah. So basically,
Dunkin'.
like, so I sent them an email and I said, hey, how did you enjoy shadowing kindergarten teachers? And they'll say, I like it, I hate it. And then you could say like, okay, so sometimes, and it depends on the vibe. Sometimes you could send them out again the second time to have them shadow with the team. So not just only one time, but you could do the second time. And then by the time the second shadowing works out well, then you'll be able to have them commit to a Sabbath. So they could still commit to first Sabbath. Or maybe they say, things are happening on my end on the first Sabbath. I would like to serve on the fourth. So you just continue to build, connect them in that kind of way. And that's a great tool for people to be able to greet. And also like have them exchange numbers and digits and all that fun stuff. So that's what I have for Shadow Me Sabbath. I don't know if anybody have any questions, if I made it clear.
I guess you would have to make sure that those individuals would have a police check prior to
Yes.
shadowing, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Police check, that's a must. So that's what I do. While they're talking, I send them the link for the background check. And by the time, so once when I get clearance from them, then we'll talk more. Then we'll go forward with the shadowing.
Yeah. Nish and I are very strong believers that you don't get access to our kids until you're cleared. I have never had an experience with a person who genuinely should have had access to my kids sooner, who is like, how dare you make me do a background check? I have had plenty of experiences with people who should never have had access to my kids, who are like, how dare you make me do a background check? So yeah, the answer is, did you get that cleared first? So I'm going to skip Simon Says, because apparently they revolted against it. I don't know. I thought it would be fun. But I want to start with, we want to start talking about now the idea of you've got people, they're like, yes, absolutely. Whether it's because it's the middle of the year and you've got a new recruit and they're coming in, or it's the start of a new year, nominating committee has started, let's begin. Either way, we're going to talk about what's called onboarding. How do you get someone into the ministry? Now that they've said yes, what's the next step? And so with this, I want to start with saying that you set the standard for your ministry. Okay, Nish. You set the standard for your ministry. They are not going to ever rise above your level. Okay. So if you want a ministry team that is preparing in advance for their Sabbath school, that is not showing up. When we did AY, my mom coined the phrase surprise Sabbath, which meant that You just grabbed 3 kids as they walked in for AY, and they got to lead song service. So surprise. It's not fun. I'm going to tell you that. As a kid, I did not enjoy that. If that's what you're looking for, is somebody who's going to have, this is the program that we have. It's organized, it flows well, it's intentional. Then you as a leader need to be organized and have those clear expectations and be intentional. Okay. If you want leaders who are constantly going to be growing and improving, and this is kind of one of those, haha, good for you, pat yourself on the back for this one. Showing up at trainings and being present and learning is a really good way to set the example that we are a team that's constantly growing and improving. Okay. So remember that as we're kind of talking through some of these things. If you want, I'm going to be honest, I do evaluations for everything I do. When I have an event, I have a program worksheet that I work through to make sure we have all of the funding in place, all of the supplies are ordered. We know what the timeline is going to look like. I know exactly which staff members are showing up when and to do what. And at the end of that thing, there is always an evaluation. Always the question of how effectively did we, and our 3 things are connect with Jesus, walk with Jesus, and share Jesus. So my questions are, how effectively did we, whichever one of those things we were actually trying to do. When I start out, it's Vacation Bible School. I want to connect kids with Jesus. Okay. So I'm going to look at the end of Vacation Bible School. And yes, I am going to make a note of how many kids showed up. I am going to make a note of whether or not we had to send anybody to the hospital. I am going to make a note of whether or not any of our crew leaders got into physical altercations. But I'm also going to make a note of, this is how I know we connected kids with Jesus, because I was walking past the prayer station and listened to these kids excited about praying, or because I was at the Bible station and literally watched my pastor turn into Goliath before me, and the kids just had this amazing, amazing time. I'm going to make those notes as I'm evaluating. And when I circle back with my team and say, how do you guys feel like this went? How do you feel we did at connecting kids with Jesus? I'm going to point out those specific examples that I gave. And then I'm going to say, what did you guys see? How did you guys see this come out? Okay. The other thing that's really important is that from day one, we have to hit the ground running. Okay. So if you're starting with the nominating committee, or you're onboarding a new person in the middle of the year, they should always feel like their introduction into your ministry is a big deal. Either way. If at the beginning of the year, for example, we did, and we had to do it online this year because of COVID, we did a virtual heroes party. In order to do that, everybody got the handbooks, everybody got their binders that I showed you earlier. They also got their cape and mask. They also got cute little balloons and streamers and pow, bam, wow things to put up in their house so that they could decorate their little Zoom space. And then they also got what I refer to as adult juice boxes, which is little baby bottles of sparkling apple cider, non-alcoholic, don't worry guys. As well as, obviously there has to be goldfish, or some other kind of, we also put Oreos, and then peanuts. Like, they got a bag of stuff that was just absolutely like, oh, this is so great. And then they got their cute little hero packet. When they showed up for that party, we went through the binders. These are the expectations that we have for you guys. These are the resources that are available for you guys. These are the people that you're going to want to call. Okay. They go through all of that in a fun, excited, life is good. This is a really great place to be way. Okay. You want to kick off with that strong positivity. You guys do not have to all do hero packs because you're not all hero themed, but get your team together, have them come over to your house and popcorn and I don't know, fruit punch, I don't know, but whatever it is you want to do. I've seen teams that got together one night and they all went to dinner for their first get together so that they could know each other, and they talked about ministry stuff and they talked through what they wanted to do. But make it a very intentional time. Throughout the year, we do not throw a party. We do not have a huge party for every new person that joins. We do have a party. We do have a get together for the team that they're joining. So new youth Sabbath school teacher shows up. The next youth team meeting is going to celebrate them being here. That's just a part of the agenda for that meeting. It's great. Everybody is like, yay, because they know that means it's going to be some extra good food instead of just, like sodas and candy. Katrina's going to like bring pizza because we need to celebrate this person joining our team. Okay. But every time somebody comes in, they need to feel that celebration and appreciation, and they need to have those expectations expressed up front so that they know. One of the ones that I constantly have to reiterate, because when I got here, we had some bad habits happening. If Sabbath school starts at 10, teachers arrive at 9:30. If Sabbath school starts at 9:30, teachers arrive at 9. That is an expectation that they all hear in their first meeting. Because, and I do explain the because, I think it's important to stay on mission. Kids feel loved and valued and welcomed when we're ready for them. When kids arrive before us, even if they're showing up at 9:45 and Sabbath school doesn't start until 10, if they show up before us or they show up before we're ready, the impression that we give them is that we're not actually prepared for them. So we need to be there and be ready and excited to welcome them in from day one. They all get to hear it. So at no point over the course of the year does somebody circle back and say, I didn't know I was supposed to be here a half hour early. Yes, you did. We were all in that meeting. It's in your binder. Look it up. Okay. Any questions about how you kick off? Any thoughts on like what would be a cool kickoff to do for the people in your church who may not want to do a Zoom kickoff party or don't have to, because I don't know how open things are for you guys. Not okay. So Zoom parties it is. Yeah, absolutely. This is also when talking about setting an example. This is also a really good way to give people resources. So when I have a Zoom party with my leaders who are all stuck teaching Sabbath school online on Zoom, and I send them a bunch of stuff to use to make their Zoom feel cool, and we do some games, and I use this cool website for this and this cool website for that. They're having a great time, yes, but I'm also setting the example for what we want our Sabbath school class to look like. That, hey, you know how we didn't just all show up and read through the binder? Like we actually did stuff together, we joked around and we had a great time. That's what Sabbath school should look like. So we have these new websites that Katrina just showed us, and we know how to use them because we had to use them for the games. And now we're more equipped going out of it to have that be the standard for what we're doing in our programs. So I'm going to go on talking about team meetings. And this was actually, oh, wait. I had a question. Okay, so a couple of things with this. Number one, Pastor Sean, I understand from Nisha that you're a pastor. We haven't met, but clearly she knows you. So you're good people in my book. How do you create or foster buy-in for Sabbath school in general, virtual or in person? My biggest question, and this is one of those questions that I get all the time. Why are you doing Sabbath school? What is your goal for Sabbath school? What are you trying to accomplish? And not just on paper, what is your goal? Because you can tell me, yeah, well, I mean, Sabbath school is so that people can study the Bible. Great. Is that actually what your Sabbath school class looks like is the goal? Or does your Sabbath school class look like the goal is babysitting while parents study the Bible? If your goal is for kids to be excited about studying the Bible, and they can come in and go through the entire Sabbath school class without opening their Bibles, your goal is wrong. or your methods are wrong. When I come into churches, generally I come into a lot of churches that are like, we have 100 kids and we have 2 show up for Sabbath school. When you start asking questions, it doesn't boil down to Sabbath school is too early in the morning and that's why they don't show up. No matter how many times you hear that, if you ask the "and what else" question, you're going to get some other answers. That's always the easiest one. I have had, I don't understand why my kid is supposed to sit still for another hour. The kids don't do anything. I don't feel safe leaving my kid in that classroom with that teacher. I have had plenty of explanations. What we do in our church is focus on parents as the primary disciples. So when I'm teaching a Sabbath school class, even for my high schoolers, the expectation is that your parents are entrusting me with your kid so that I can assist them in doing what they do, which is disciple. That shifts the relationship that I have with parents, because I'm going to tell you right now, that was not always the relationship that I had with parents. For a while there, I was like, these are my kids. Once you drop them off to me, you need to leave me alone. When you shift that understanding to, I'm assisting you in doing your job, then you have some different questions that you're going to ask. Then the questions become much more focused on, how do I help this parent love studying the Bible throughout the week, so that bringing their kid to Sabbath school makes sense because the kid has been studying the Bible all week and we're excited to study together. How do I make kids feel comfortable, welcome, and loved in my classroom? How do I engage them? We had an all girls except one boy youth group last year before COVID. All boys, all girls except for the one boy. All of a sudden this year, we've had a huge influx of boys moving into the area, and my Sabbath school class has had to change the way it does things because boys and girls simply do not process their worlds the same all the time. You can have really cute, adorable discussions with girls that go a million directions. You will get one word answers out of your boys. So we've shifted how we do Sabbath school because I want to know how to engage these kids. And that's a very different thing from I want to engage kids in ministry. Okay. And this goes back to that setting an example. You want teachers that are excited to be there. If your teachers don't want to be at Sabbath school, your kids don't want to be at Sabbath school. If your teachers are exhausted and throwing something together at the last minute, and I say this in all love, kids translate negative emotions as rejection. They don't translate negative emotions as a range of negative emotions. When you show up tired to Sabbath school, you're rejecting them. When you show up frustrated because of something that happened 2 days ago that had nothing to do with them in Sabbath school, you're rejecting them. When you show up, I'm gonna punch the pastor in the face because they literally just shoved me into this room at the last minute and told me to teach these kids. They don't process that you're mad at somebody else. You're in the room with them and you're mad. You're mad at them. They process that every negative emotion we have is rejection. It's our job to teach them differently, but it's not our job to be like, you should just assume that I'm not mad at you. No, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be like, man, guys, this is the crazy thing that just happened. They threw me in here. It's kind of nuts, but I'm so excited to be here with you. Okay. When we start being excited and being present and not, okay, can you please get off your phone? I've had to ask you 5 times. Like, what is this? Why is this so important to you? It's important to them. You know what I do when I have kids that are like genuinely staying on their phone the entire time? I text them, hey, what are you doing? I will share the Bible verse via text with them and be like, read this to the class. Now, y'all don't all have to have the level of attitude that I have with my kids. I love them very much and they know that, but be willing to be present. Thank you. All right. So I'm gonna go on for just a second to team meetings. I know you guys have experienced this before. Do a little hand raise if you've ever attended a meeting that really should have been an email. Thank you. Thank you, Alessandro. Yeah. It's a struggle when you sit in meetings, and I'm going to be honest, as a pastor, I've sat in quite a few conference meetings where I'm like, you could have emailed me this. Some of them I'm like, you sent us this email and you're not saying anything new. You said it all in the email. Why am I here? That is not what you want for your meetings, okay? You want your meetings to, number one, be short. Nobody wants to spend the next 10 hours in a meeting unless you genuinely have to be focused on only the things that are meeting necessary. So there's lots of information that I send out on a regular basis to my leaders. Hey, here's the link to log in to the quarterly so that you can get that information. Hey, just a quick update. We're doing blah, 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 blah next week. Lots of stuff can be an email, but any relational discussion kind of things, those are meetings. If we're making our calendar for the year, we're not emailing our calendars in. We're sitting down and we're working it through, okay? Because I want collaboration in my calendar. I don't want my primary class doing its own thing, and my juniors doing their own thing, and my beginners doing their own thing. I want all of us doing something. When all of us are doing something, then we need to have a meeting for it. I don't take budget requests. No, you cannot just email me your budget. We're going to fight this thing out. This is how much money we all have. Let's figure out how we can all work together with this amount of money. So as you're going through meetings, you always want a relational aspect. They should get there and genuinely, I know I keep saying food. Feed people, guys. I think that's probably 9 times out of 10, the struggles we have in youth ministry is because somebody's hungry. Show up with food. I regularly have dinner at my house and do not cook, just so that we're clear. I say, my house is available to you. Let's have haystacks. Who's bringing what? Have that relational aspect. At your meetings, you always want to have a check-in, debrief, reflection time. How are things going? What things do you need? How can I help? Those are questions that you're asking throughout, but once we're all together, we're going to do a little bit more, okay? And you always want to leave your meetings with your volunteers, with your team, feeling loved and appreciated. They should walk away feeling like you are their biggest fan. So all of the things that you've seen, that you're celebrating, that you're proud of, absolutely go through those things with them, okay? The other things that happen at meetings is evaluations and training. So when you're going through, my evaluations are always based on the vision and mission, okay? I'm not going to evaluate whether or not you're a good person. I'm not. My questions are going to be, how are we doing in Sabbath school at helping our kids walk with Jesus? Sabbath school is all about building discipleship habits for us. How are we helping our kids walk with Jesus? Give me some concrete examples, and do not be afraid to stare them down. If you've ever been a teacher, you know that kids will start to determine whether or not they actually have to answer your questions. If you ask the question and then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll start. No. Stare them down. Be like, anybody want to start? Ask the question another way. What kids have you seen praying more, studying the Bible more? What reports are you guys getting from parents? Don't let them off the hook. The person doing the evaluating is the person who's going to own it. So if you're the person doing the evaluating and you say, I've noticed on a scale of 1 to 10 that we are at a 7 for walking with Jesus. I've seen XYZ happening, blah, 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 blah. These are some things we can do to improve. Do you know who owned that? That's all me. Do you know who has to do the work to improve it? Me. You know who's not doing it? If my team is supposed to be doing something, then my team needs to evaluate how it's going. Some people will not want to answer because, quite frankly, especially if they know they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, nobody wants to say that out loud. Make them say it out loud and listen to their very beautiful excuses for why. You know, I know that things have not been going well on social media. We have not posted in the last 6 months, but you've got to understand, what should we do next to improve? And that's a question that you're asking, whether the person has been absolutely stellar, fantastic, wonderful for the last 6 months, or whether you have literally been dragging yourself along for the last 6 months. You're asking, what are we doing now to improve? What do we do next? Okay, that creates an environment that says we as Christians are always growing. So we as a church are always growing. So we as a ministry are always growing. It's not, oh, now you've done enough and you're good. It's what else can we do? How do we move forward from here? Okay. And then that also gives you the opportunity to look at, hey, I noticed that all of our Sabbath school teachers are struggling with classroom discipline. Like, it's the weirdest thing, but primary is like, man, we've got kids, they're not following instructions. Juniors, kids not following instructions. Kindergarten, kids not following instructions. I think we might need to provide some training on classroom management. That's a dead giveaway. If I walk into a church and say, hey, I'm going to provide some training on classroom management, do you know how many people are going to be super excited to show up to that? Me. If I walk in and say, hey, what do you guys need? And over and over again, they're saying, we need classroom management training. Do you know how many people are going to be so excited to show up to my classroom management training? Not just me. You want to leave the ownership with the team. You as a leader, and this is really hard, as a leader, it is not your job to do all of it. It is your job to empower all of it getting done. So you need to have your team take as much ownership as possible, because sometimes those next steps are, we need to start mentoring some more people. It's us, we've got 6 of us here, and yeah, that means that Sabbath school is always covered, but you know what? So-and-so is pregnant, so she's going to be leaving soon. Such and such is really looking at a different job. He's going to be leaving soon. Such and such was talking about they only wanted to do this for 3 years, and we're on the 3rd year. So we're going to need to be mentoring some new people. Who can we look at? Who can we pull in? Who can we involve? And knowing that, being able to have those conversations and talk that stuff through, knowing it from there, who are we going to mentor into building this ministry up going forward is very different from, well, Katrina, who are you going to have to replace these people that are leaving your ministry? Because then the person responsible for replacing them is me. And I don't know everybody in the church. I don't know everything that's going on. And so stopping and saying, hey, who are you mentoring to replace you is a very different question. If you need me to come up with some suggestions for people, I'm happy to provide any ideas that I come up with, but the ownership needs to be with them. That is one of the things. Volunteers need community, but volunteers also need to know that they're actually doing something, not just playing puppetry for you. Okay. Any questions about that? I think we have a little bit of time for questions, it looks like. No? Was this helpful? Not helpful? Secretly stopped listening? Fell asleep? I'm not mad if you fell asleep. Sometimes we all need rest. Okay. Well, that's it for me. So I'm gonna hand it back over to Alessandra.
I think you have a question from Kanisha.
Oh, Kanisha, go for it.
Yeah, I had a question. I'm not sure if I missed this from earlier today, but the 5 do's of recruiting. I think I missed
The 5 do's or the 5 don'ts?
the do's.
We don't have dues. We just have, we have a
Oh.
process for recruiting. That's what that is.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. There's so much to do when it comes to recruiting. We couldn't narrow it down to 5. So we just talk about the process of recruiting.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's when we're talking about like those personal invitations, talking through understanding people's gifting before you throw them in. And then making sure, oh, one more thing, and I'll say this. I try very hard with my new volunteers to do the process of 2s. So 2 days, 2 weeks, and 2 months, I will check in with them. So Sabbath, you have your very first program that you're doing Sabbath school by yourself. Monday, you're going to get a call from me. Hey, how did that go? Did you need anything? How did you feel about that? Blah, blah, blah. 2 weeks later, after you've gotten a chance to do it a couple of times, I'm going to call again and say, hey, how are things going? Do you have any questions? Are there any things that you'd really like to see us do? Blah, blah, blah. 2 months into it, I'm transitioning now into you are a part of this team. You are a part of this family. I'm so grateful that you're here. What else would you like to be contributing? What are ideas that you have to move us forward? What are things that you're noticing that we need to be looking at?
Okay, cool.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Oh, well, thank you. OC Youth Ministries.
That'll be Pastor John.
I was like, is that Pastor John, or is that just like the official? I don't know. Sometimes when we're doing like trainings and stuff, when we're doing, I shouldn't tell you guys this, but you're not my conference, so you can't do anything about it. When we're doing like conference pastors meetings and they're on Zoom, my lead pastor or myself will get on and we'll just change our name to PC pastors, and we'll turn the screen off, turn the video off, so you don't know that it's not both of us and that neither one of us is actually paying attention, because it just says PC pastors are present. So you're like, okay, yeah, good for you guys.
Oh man, that's so funny. I'm sure you're not the only one.
Oh,
man.
I know I'm not.
Well, Pastor Trina, thank you so much just for your time, and thank you for having to do this almost all alone.
That's okay.
Pretty much all alone this afternoon. I know Pastor had to go funeral. I know pastoral duties call.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate your time. I'm gonna stop the recording right now just so that